Okay.
Mhm.
So, Paula, welcome. Thank you so much for coming along today and having a little chit chat. And so, tell me a little bit about you. What is it that you do? How you got there? What's driven you to become where you were? Where were you before? Tell me everything. Just let it all come
Okay, thank
out.
you. Well, thank you for having me as well. So I am a transformational self-love coach, and also I am a light language channel and activator as well. But to go back to the very beginning, I actually had a 26-year career as a lingerie designer.
Mm.
But from my 20s, I also started my spiritual path. So I was kind of on two roads, really. The one side where I think I knew there was something more, and I was on a bit of a natural journey of also trying to get to the root of a lot of my struggles that I had, but then also being in a job that I loved because it was very creative, but actually also ironically going into a job that also kind of further perpetuated, some of my struggles, which were also very much fixed around the body,
Oh, okay.
being
So
brought
that's what
up
it
in,
was. Yeah, that was my question. I was
yeah,
just,
so,
what was the struggle? Yeah.
yeah, so, well, many struggles really, because, I had such low self-worth, such low self-confidence, found it, I was super sensitive. So, I took everything very personally, was very emotional, didn't really understand why I felt the way I felt. And on a conscious level, I had an awareness of sort of the early years growing up when my dad used to drink. I used to hear the arguing and the fighting, and I used to wake up. And so I knew on a conscious level I was affected by that. But I didn't realize until the last couple of years just the impact that had on me in so many ways, that I was still sort of had these traumatized little me's inside of me. But then on top of that, my parents, bless them, were very, critical, judgmental. And my mum had a lot of issues with her body and was always on a diet. So I was kind of brought up, again, with that mentality of what was acceptable and what wasn't acceptable. And then I go into an industry, where I'm surrounded by really thin models.
Mm.
So I, had even more issues with my body. I never felt comfortable in my own skin. I always felt big. And,
And
in
yet,
the
being
early
the
years, I
size
was
you
only
are.
a size
Yeah.
well, in the early years, I was only a size 12, which is still, well
Less than the
below
average.
the
Yeah.
massive average.
Yeah.
But when I got made redundant from a job, and I went down to a size 8 to 10 with the stress. And my mum told me that I needed to lose weight because my bum was big. So, that things like that really sort of stick in your mind again of, I'm not acceptable as I am. And I didn't love myself. I didn't respect myself. But I also didn't realize how badly I was treating myself. And as we know, we attract all these situations and people that actually just mirror to us how we feel about ourselves. And so, I would get very hurt, upset around, maybe people and situations that I would attract, and think, well, that's not very nice. But actually never really consciously taking responsibility for how I was talking to myself every day when I looked in the mirror, or how I treated myself, which was really not nice at all. When you wouldn't treat a friend that way, but you don't realize when it becomes so ingrained,
Yeah.
and like brushing your teeth every day, looking in the mirror and saying, oh, you're fat, old and ugly, that was the dialogue. And I used to measure myself every day, weigh myself every day. And I guess, within that, there's that element of where we're trying to be in control when we maybe feel out of control. in other circumstances. So I just kept, on this quest for myself, really. I started in my 20s, going to meditations for crystal healing. And, I love crystals. And I think we all, when, we connect with crystals, there is that deeper remembrance as well from, other lives. But as much as it was very relaxing for me, it wasn't getting to the root of my struggles. And, what I've recently realized in the last couple of years, that those little ages of me that were traumatized had checked out the body. And that was where I felt actually, I spent a lot of my 20s and 30s floating out up there. And when I was meditating, I knew that I'd gone off somewhere really beautiful, and I didn't want to come back in the body. And then I'd get quite emotional about having to come back in the body. And, that is obviously all part of our healing journey, that what we're doing is we're bringing all of that into the body, and grounding it in. And that's part of why we're here. That's part of being human. But I think for me, those experiences just kept me out of the body. Yeah. So I still, wasn't really getting to where I needed to, and still in an industry where I was still, I was seeking validation with all the female bosses, that validation that you don't get at home. So you're trying to seek it externally, but then I was continually being met with these nightmare women, that were bullies and all of those things. And so I'd get more stress and more stress. So basically, just before the first lockdown in 2020, I actually handed my notice in to a full-time job that I was in, still in the industry, but again with a boss who was, very very bullying, manipulative, and causing a lot of stress, not just to me, but actually to the rest of the team. And it was making me ill, really. The anxiety levels, the blood pressure was getting very elevated. And I just thought, I can't do this anymore. And I think it was that, deeper knowing as well. Look, come on, when are you going to give this up and actually do what you need to do? So I handed my notice in, and obviously the world came to a stop anyway. And so within that time, I started searching a bit more and came across a lady called Tara Love Perry that does the I Love You Me method, which is this transformational self-love, which really is kind of like it is deeper therapy work, really. And it's about really connecting you into the body, and what are you really feeling, what is really going on in there. And for the first time, I was 50 this year, and this was only a couple of years ago. For the first time, I really connected with myself, with all that pain and all those little ages of me and past life me's. And I've just gone on such a very deep, very painful at times, as it is, when we're really going in and meeting ourselves, but so transformational. I now do have self-love for myself. I don't weigh and measure myself every day. I'm so much more confident. At the moment, actually, not just myself, but other people are really being tested with boundaries at the moment, and our self-worth. And it's been really interesting for me the last couple of weeks to see how far I've come, that I'm like, actually, no, this is my boundary. This is how much I, respect myself. I know my worth, and I'm not accepting that, whereas past Paula, the people pleaser, would just accept things, but then internalize it and be very angry, but not actually do anything about it. So it's been an incredible couple of years, really.
And so that led you on to then wanting to help other people to be the same and to release that for themselves. And so,
Yeah, because I think, yeah,
carry on.
sorry.
Sorry, please carry on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say as well, because I think with a lot of things, you know, you almost have to have gone through it to be able to know what it feels like. And, you know, I'm a great believer you can only really meet someone in that space when you've met yourself, you know, that deeply. And equally, you know, for some people, they might not be ready to come and have that level of going in and looking, because it is, you know, for them, they're not ready. It might seem a bit scary. But yeah, I think for me now, because of looking back on my journey, the things that did work for me, the things that didn't work for me, but knowing that actually the crucial thing we have to do, we have to go in and meet ourselves, because at the end of the day, you know, we're all here to help each other and give the tools, but we're the ones that have to do the work. And we're the ones that have to go in and really love those parts of ourselves that we maybe don't realize are there, and we don't realize that we've abandoned ourselves. And it's being able to give people the tools and empower them to not be afraid to go in, and just give that love. It really, you know, everything for me does come back down to that self-worth and that self-love that we have for ourselves, and that self-awareness. So yeah, that's what I'm passionate about, you know, really helping other people, because I think if I've done it, I know, you know, I know other people can, if they're ready, you know, to.
And so do you find now, I presume you still meditate now?
I
Do you
do.
do you find can you observe the difference now from when you go to that meditation and then you come back? The difference in coming back is presumably
Yeah,
different.
because, you know, I have had, you know, many moments in my life where clearly I haven't taken my life because I'm still here, but I have had moments in my life where, and because of my beliefs that, you know, I don't believe this life is just this,
Mm.
you know, that I've like, oh, actually it would be much easier if I didn't wake up tomorrow, because it felt too hard to be here. Whereas now I'm like, no, I want to be here. I have a purpose, I have a passion. So, you know, and also through the journey, I don't fear the connection, because I think, you know, sometimes we also can fear not just, you know, our physical world, but we can fear opening ourselves up, you know, to the connection, because what, you know, what if there's other things we don't want to see or we don't want to connect with? Although, you know, my belief is it's all resonance anyway, and we can only attract certain things if it's in our vibration, and there's something that we need to go in and meet within ourselves, even if we don't want to face it. You know, the truth is things can only come into our field if there is, you know, something within us that is still resonating with that. But yeah, very much now you know, I'm sort of far more embodied, find it so much easier to, you know, whatever happens, because I mean, we're all still learning and growing. So I'm not immune to getting triggered now and again, but I will go straight into that trigger and right, okay, what's going on within me? You know, what am I really feeling, rather than how I would be before. I'd just be like, oh, you know, well, that's not nice. And, you know, the focus was on the external, whereas now, you know, for me, it's about whatever we're feeling, whatever triggers we have, it's not about the external, it's what's going on inside of us.
And it's quite tough
Yeah.
to do that, to do that process and to continually do it as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've really got to
Yeah.
own it, haven't you? And it can be quite tough in that process.
Yes.
It's interesting as we're talking,
It
I'm
can.
thinking of a client that I met yesterday who I just thought she would resonate perfectly with you. But as you were saying, I'll see if it is, because I remember saying to her before she left, I have a whole big selection of people that I know that could really help you. I don't think I'm personally the
Yeah.
one for her. Um, and I think you might be. So I'll forward on your details to her later. Because
Thank you.
yeah, I think that self-love thing is really tough. It really is. And that
It is.
the mind can
Yeah.
take over even when you're somebody that I can perceive myself to be relatively sort of lucky in terms of mental health, that I've not had any issues like that where I've wanted to take my life, but I still have a daily, not moments, daily moment of well, you're not good enough, you're not doing this right, why are you doing it that way? There's a lot of negative self-talk, and it's interesting
Yeah.
how we just allow that to go ahead all day long, don't we? And just I think it is
Yeah.
it's a real lesson to learn not to let that self-talk continue, to actually say, actually, I'm okay today. I'm okay. I'm not perfect. I'm
Yeah.
human. But actually, I've done
Yeah.
something really good last week. I did another really, and you can tie little things, can't you? And just say, I was doing a list the other day of 10 different things that I've done, that I've achieved and only in the last week. And it was the first one. I was just, oh God, what can I write? What have when I started to write them, they were
Yeah.
flowing like crazy. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's so important, isn't it, to try and really challenge that's inner talk. And it can be
It
tough
is. And
to do.
it's like, yeah, it's like really trying to as well, observe ourselves, from that higher perspective, and just think, okay, I see what I'm doing here. Like with the I love you me as well, it's very much about acknowledging yourself, speaking out loud to yourself, which can seem a bit funny and actually can be emotional at first, because when we have shut down from ourselves, even that kind of hand on heart and hello me, I see you, I feel you, can be emotional, because it's like, oh my goodness, I have just totally shut down from you and disassociated from you. And it's that acknowledging, okay, hello me, that feels whatever it is, that you're feeling, and just really tapping in with that. So even with the thoughts, it's just as well bringing awareness to that, isn't it? Like you say, and right, okay, I see what I'm doing here. Is that the absolute truth?
Mm.
Or can I connect in my heart and actually feel something else? But what's really going on with me with these thoughts? And we can be so good at comparing ourselves as well, can't we, when maybe we are lacking that self-worth or that self-confidence.
Mm.
But when we do the comparison rather than really seeing ourselves as unique,
Mm.
I think a lot of that dialogue can kick in as well, can't it? And that self-doubt. And so it's really, for me now, I think I'm so used to doing it that it does become easier, because I'll always observe myself, even if that's okay, where am I trying to distract myself and sit on my phone, or think I'll just watch this,
Yeah.
as a distraction to do what I know I need to do. Whether that's to get myself out there more in my business, is there another part of me that's trying to keep me safe and
Yeah.
contained? But it's incredible once you can start to really observe yourself and connect in with what you're feeling.
Yeah.
I think it opens up a whole new level of awareness.
Absolutely. I was just this morning running a group within Affinity about connecting and sharing, and we were saying about how, if you're able to just to allow yourself to share without any
Yeah.
response back, nobody to
Yeah.
nobody to give you a tissue, or nobody to say, oh, are you okay? Or we can feel within, it's great because we can feel within ourselves the urge to fix another. And that's just distancing
Yeah.
ourselves from what our journey is, isn't it? And to understand that
Yeah.
we need to work on ourselves all the time. It doesn't matter how, there's a,
Yeah.
I think there's somehow a belief that, well, this person has been spiritual for so long, therefore they don't need to do any work on themselves. But actually,
Yes.
the work is happening on a daily basis. That's why they don't perceive to be
Yeah.
looking like they don't need any work on themselves, because actually they are continuing
Exactly.
to do it.
Yeah.
And it is a process, isn't it? It
Yeah.
is and yes, it gets easier
Yeah.
over time, but you're not ever stopping and saying, right, hey, I've done it now. You've got
No,
the badge,
exactly,
you've got the
because
certificate.
there's always another layer to go, isn't there? Or, the more we push ourselves out, with whatever it is we feel we're here to do, we're always going to have a deeper unraveling, of
Absolutely.
something maybe we thought we dealt with and maybe we have on a certain level. But it's, like you say, in a way, it is a devotion. I think when you do go, on this path of personal growth, there is an element that it is a devotional practice. And ironically, we don't realize actually that we can be very good at a devotional negative self-talk
Yes,
practice
absolutely.
every
Yeah.
day. But yeah, so why can't we flip it actually and, make it something that's productive, positive, helpful?
Yeah. I mean, it is ridiculous, isn't it? So are there any kind of tools that you use? What do you recommend? Is there something that an easy way for somebody to change that, to start to help themselves to love themselves a bit better?
Yeah, so what I would say is, for anyone that might be struggling maybe with a feeling, or, let's just say you wake up one day and maybe you feel anxious or overwhelmed. And again, notice, as well as noticing where you might be distracting yourself from not wanting to feel what you're really feeling, but just taking, those few moments to, put a hand on your heart, breathe into your heart and say, hello, me.
Mm.
And then, say to yourself, hello, me that feels anxious, overwhelmed, or whatever it is, sad, whatever the feeling or the emotion is. And, tell yourself, I see you, I feel you, I hear you, me that feels. And then, within that feeling, just see if maybe you could sense, if you were to get a perception of, okay, where is overwhelmed, anxious me in the body? If you could get a sense of where she might be in the body, maybe she's in the throat. So then you could acknowledge her in the throat, hello, anxious, overwhelmed me in my throat. And then maybe see, okay, as you bring awareness to that part of you, like maybe do you get a sense of an age of you that's really feeling that? Because so often we think it is our adult self that's feeling these things or being triggered, but as we know, it's more likely the younger ages of us or past life, of us that's feeling these things. So if you can bring awareness to that, and then again directly sort of acknowledge that part of you. So let's just say there's a 5-year-old anxious, overwhelmed you in the throat. So you can say, hello, 5-year-old anxious, overwhelmed me in my throat. Again, I see you, I feel you, I hear you, and I'm sorry, me that feels anxious, overwhelmed, whatever it is. And then please forgive me that feels. And again, the sorries and the please forgive me is not because we've done anything wrong, but it's really just because we're just really having compassion, and empathy for that part of us that feels that. And then, and tell that part of you, I love you, me that feels, and then if you were to sort of get any sense of where that age or past you, if you get a sense of where they might be, a situation that you were in that made you feel those feelings, then, as adult you, try and get a sense of going to that younger self or past self, and asking them what do they need, because it's, a lot of it is about, we often, as children as well, could have felt that way because we didn't get the love or the support or the understanding from whether that's a parent or a teacher or whoever it might be. And very often those ages of us, they're still waiting, they're still waiting for that parent to come and say, I love you, or I understand, or, whatever it is they might be feeling. Maybe they were shamed because they were emotional. Certainly for me, emotion was not something that you expressed, and as we often know, it's because also maybe a parent, they can't handle looking at their own stuff, so they can't cope with you being emotional. So maybe, you would be told, as I often, had been, it's the sort of thing where it can be, go off and sort yourself out and come back when you're finished, and, all things like that. So really giving that part of you, whatever she's feeling, the space to feel how she feels, to fully acknowledge and validate how they feel, because that's their reality. So it has to be validated. And then it's like, well, what do they need from you right now to help them? So, maybe they need to express something, so give voice to them. What is it they need to say? Or maybe they just need your love. Maybe they need a hug. Maybe they need your reassurance. So whatever it is, just really feeling like you're giving yourself that. And, the more that you do that, I think then it becomes so much easier to not try and numb out or ignore whatever might be coming up for you, because maybe you're too busy, or you haven't got time for it, or you don't want to feel it. But really just in that moment, even if you don't want to go too deep, but just in that moment, you can just put a hand on the heart and say, hello, me that feels. I'm sorry, me that feels. Just so that you feel like you're not completely shutting down and ignoring, what is naturally ready to be seen. It wants to come out. It wants to be acknowledged.
I think that's
Yeah.
it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to do that on your own. I think that's I've done a lot of
It is, and that is
exercises like
sometimes,
that. I think it's much easier to do it with another person, isn't it? To have them guiding you through that
yeah,
process. And it's interesting
yeah. I
because
think
where
once
you're,
you've done it a few, yeah.
sorry,
Sorry, there's a little bit of a
there's
delay.
a lag, I know, sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, you're right. I think in the beginning, you may find it, well, for a couple of reasons, because like for me as well, growing up, because I had numbed out, I found it so difficult to connect, even when people would say, the answers are in you. And I'm like, well, I can't get the answers. So, I think initially, yes, having someone hold space for you can be really helpful, because also if it is a really painful, situation or feeling that you're going into, a lot of people can not want to feel it on their own. They don't want to go there. So yeah, it can be really helpful to have someone hold that space and just to prompt the questions, because then it can be easier to get the answers and get the connection. But certainly, with the sessions I do, the idea is that obviously you would have so many, and then it becomes easier for you to be able to do it for yourself. And then maybe if you did just get stuck with something, you might need another one every now and again. But the idea is that, it's empowering you to have the tools to not be afraid to do it yourself.
Yeah. It's interesting hearing you talk about it, because it's there are lots of other different methods that I have done, which ultimately are the same thing. So it's interesting to see that within this field of work, there are lots of people that do similar processes that get to the same point
Yes.
and get to it, but just have a different sort of covering to it and a
Approach.
different name or a different
Yeah.
language to it. And so
Yeah.
I find that really interesting, because there's international family systems, I think, do that sort of work as well. And yeah, it's when I've had the work, it hasn't had hasn't had a label for me because I've gone to people that it's just been part of a process.
Yeah,
And I haven't. So it's yeah, I find it fascinating that it's
yeah,
collectively that the way we can approach it can be a different way, but we are actually all experiencing this in this field, and there are different ways to
yeah,
connect in with that. And one thing resonates with one person, one thing resonates with other, but actually ultimately the same. It's the same experience, and it's funny how the different
yeah,
packaging can be
it
resonate
is.
differently, but the experience is the same. So
Yeah,
yeah, I find that
yeah.
interesting.
And I think the main thing is for me as well, it's, whatever modality it is or whatever method, like you say, the important bit for me though is definitely getting into the body to
Yeah,
really feel it, because it's not, we can't think our way out of it. Um, so for me, it was definitely the being able to get back into the body, because that is a lot of this work as well. It is kind of like a soul retrieval in a way for those
yeah,
parts of you that might have been, too overwhelmed, that they, had checked out of the body. Certainly for me, little 5-year-old me, she was up in the stars and, you know, um, not too keen to come back.
yeah.
Um, you know, so it's all a process, but it is getting us back into the body as well.
And do you ever find that you want to use, you must have learned through people. So do you ever find you want to go back to them from occasion if there's something that you feel like, oh, I'm a bit stuck on something at the moment. Or have you found now that you're able to do all of it within and you don't need to have that external?
Well, most of it I will just check in and do it with myself. But sometimes if I think, oh, do you know what? I feel like I'm not quite getting into this. So, I have a friend that also did the I Love You Me. Sometimes we'll do a swap.
Right.
And I have another dear friend that does light language as well, and energy healing, and sometimes we'll have a little swap. So yeah, I do definitely, if I feel like I'd like that little bit of extra
Yeah.
support, then
I
yeah.
think it's good because it allows
But I
us to
think
be,
as you're probably the, oh sorry.
please carry on.
Yeah, I was going to say you're probably the same. It's almost like though, as you do go on your journey, then you sounds awful to say, but you almost get more particular, don't you, though, where you do want to go, and who want to hold the space for you.
Yeah. I yeah, I was saying that there are, I don't know that I have necessarily had to get particular because the right things come in now at the right time. So
Yeah,
I'm very fortunate because I'm lucky that it doesn't mean to say that I won't necessarily go to a spa and have a terrible massage and think, oh my God, that was terrible. But I try not to. I try to avoid that. But yeah, I think when it comes from a development side, I really do believe that you get the right thing for you. And even that terrible massage was still a learning. There's still something in that, and there's still, and maybe it
yeah,
was just to show me that actually I'm not as bad as I constantly want to tell myself, maybe I could have done it
yeah,
better. Um,
yeah,
so talk to me
absolutely.
about this light language because what is that about?
Yeah, so my light language was kind of activated, came online like through the I Love You Me process, through a lady that I met during then. And it's basically, light language it is a multi-dimensional language. It's the language of the soul. We all have the ability to speak light language, just like we all have the ability, to have our different clairs. because we are spiritual, depending on your beliefs. My belief, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and it's just about, again, remembering the different gifts. So with light language, it's another very powerful form of energy healing. There is so much, for me, I channel through the sound. So, there's so much frequency that comes through the sound, so much information that's packed into it, of coding, activation. It's very clearing and healing. A lot of it sometimes is hard for our human mind to comprehend just how powerful it is. But within light language, you have the different frequencies. So there is like the galactic, the angelic, the elemental, the earth energies. So there's all the different frequencies that we can bring through, and different people might, for me, I have lots of different frequencies that come through me, or some people can just have maybe one or two. There's no right or wrong. Everybody is individual what they bring through, but it's I just feel very blessed by it. I just love it. It's expanding me in so many ways, and I do bring it into the self-love coaching sessions as well, for people that are open to receive, because I think very often, if someone's in a what feels a very emotional, painful situation of maybe meeting a little part of them or a past life part of them, to bring in the light language as well, just to help with that clearing and healing, is super powerful. It can sound a little bit strange if you're not used to it. But it is so powerful. And I did actually, at Paynes Hill near me, they had a well-being event in August that I did, and I did some little light language taster sessions, and I was really amazed at how many people were fascinated to try it. And as I'm sitting down sort of explaining a bit to them and asking them what other energy healings that they had, and some of them would be like, no, nothing, not even Reiki or anything. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know what they're going to make of this. But actually everybody was really open and receptive. And depending where people were at on their spiritual journey, some people felt things in the body, some people could see a lot, but for the people that weren't necessarily that far on their journey, but they all said, wow, I feel really calm, and they were fascinated by it. So
well, I'm very much looking forward to having my session then. I can't wait.
I know, can't wait to bring something through for you. Yeah.
And so, is there anything else, any learnings that you've wanted to share, any experiences to mind?
I think for me, what I think is, a big one for us all, really, for us to really, help us through life, is really taking that personal responsibility and that self-awareness, to know that actually in every moment, I think we just don't believe how powerful we are. We don't believe that we create our experiences, and it's really trying to think, rather than always, whatever is going on in the outer world is always a reflection of what's going on in our inner world. And it's just really being able to love ourselves enough to to take that responsibility and to think, actually, I'm going to stop putting the focus out there and really try and connect in with myself. And I think, for me, that is what is the key. And I think for me, where I had struggled with that connecting in and realizing that aha moment of, oh my goodness, look how awful I've been treating myself all these years, but also being able to have so much love and compassion for yourself, because we all do what we do with the level of awareness that we have. And so very often, people don't like that word forgiveness always. They can struggle with that word, but so much often is where we just have to forgive ourselves, and love ourselves. And that is what is that catalyst then, isn't it, for everything else on the outside and the relationships that we have with other people as well. But don't be afraid.
Or embrace the fear. Allow it to
absolutely.
be a part of, and it's all radical acceptance, isn't it? At the end of the day, if you can accept everything within you, then there's no imbalance, there's no fight, there's no battle, which is what we can spend our whole lives battling against, can't we? Brilliant.
And nothing's ever going to be perfect, is it? We are, at the end of the day, we are human, having a human experience. So I think it's, when we, like you say, we're always growing. So whenever you might hit a low day or an uncomfortable emotion, just don't let it consume you. Just think, okay, today I'm feeling this. I'm maybe going to tap in and see, what am I really feeling? Why am I feeling this? But just, be an allowance and acceptance of, well, that's okay. It's okay that I'm feeling this today. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I'm just going to sit with it, let it come through me without resisting it or judging it or making it wrong or making it bad. It's just that acceptance, like you say.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for coming today and sharing all
thank you for having
the things
me.
that you have learned along the way. And I'm looking forward to passing that client on to you, because I think you will be a great match for her right now. And
amazing.
I think it's always important to know when they're not right for you, but they're right for somebody else. So so thank you very much, and
thank you.
have a beautiful day.